You're standing in the grocery store, cart half full, phone in hand, checking your bank balance for the third time this week. You're not buying anything crazy, just the basics: eggs, milk, bread, maybe some chicken if it's on sale. But that anxiety, that tight feeling in your chest every time you swipe your card, that's always there. And here's the part that makes it worse. You've tried to fix this. You've cut out coffee, you've meal prepped, you've said no to dinners with friends, you've turned down trips, you've made yourself smaller, quieter, more careful, and yet, somehow, you're still stressed about money. So let me ask you something. What if the problem isn't that you're spending too much? What if the real problem is that you're cutting the wrong things? Here's what's really happening. Most people think saving money is about deprivation, about saying no to everything, about squeezing every last cent out of life until you've got nothing left but a sad lunch and the guilt trip. But that's not how wealthy people save money. They don't nickel and dime themselves into misery. They focus. They apply the 20-80 rule and they cut less, not more. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do the same. You're going to learn why 20% of your spending is eating 80% of your money and how to identify those expenses in under 10 minutes. You're going to discover the psychological shift that happens when you stop trying to be good and start being strategic. And you're going to walk away with a clear, actionable system to save thousands this year without feeling like you're punishing yourself. Because here's the truth. Freedom doesn't come from spending less on everything. It comes from spending right on the things that matter and ruthlessly eliminating the things that don't. I'm James, and I've spent far too much time breaking down how the rich actually think and what they do differently that no one ever teaches you. So let's talk about the 80-20 rule of spending and why it's the most powerful financial lens you'll ever use. Let's start with something most people won't admit out loud. You don't actually know where your money goes. Sure, you know the big stuff: rent, car payment, insurance, but the rest, it's a blur. A subscription here, a quick Target run there, takeout on a Tuesday because you were too tired to cook, a treat yourself moment that felt harmless in the moment but added up to $200 by the end of the month. And the worst part, you feel like you're being careful. You're not living large, you're not buying designer bags or taking spontaneous trips to Europe. You're just existing. But existing is expensive. And when you try to fix it, the advice you get is always the same: cut everything. Make coffee at home, stop eating out, cancel Netflix, walk instead of Ubering, buy generic, clip coupons. It's exhausting. And here's why it doesn't work. You're trying to save pennies while dollars are walking out the back door. If you found this helpful so far, hit subscribe because we're about to break down exactly where those dollars are hiding. Here's the concept that changes everything. The 80-20 rule, also called the Pareto principle, says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions. In spending terms, that means 80% of your financial stress comes from 20% of your expenses. Not all of them, just the handful. And if you can identify and cut those, the big, quiet money drains, you'll save more in 1 month than a year of skipping lattes ever could. Let me show you what I mean. Most people approach budgeting like this. They try to shrink every category by a little bit. $5 less on coffee, $10 less on groceries, $15 less on gas. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And it feels terrible because you're constantly saying no to small joys while never actually solving the problem. But here's what the 80-20 rule teaches you. Not all expenses are created equal. Some of your spending is high impact. It's the stuff that quietly eats your paycheck and gives you nothing in return. And some of your spending is low impact. It brings you genuine joy, connection, or value, and costs almost nothing. The goal isn't to cut everything. The goal is to cut the 20% that's stealing 80% of your peace of mind. Let me give you a real example. Let's say you spend $12 a month on Netflix, $15 a month on Spotify, $50 a month on a gym membership you haven't used in 3 months, $80 a month on food delivery apps, $120 a month on impulse purchases at convenience stores, $200 a month on a car payment for a vehicle that's more than you needed. Now, conventional advice would tell you to cancel Netflix and Spotify first. Why? Because they're unnecessary luxuries. But here's the truth. Netflix costs you $12. That unused gym membership, those delivery fees, and that convenience store habit, that's $250 a month. And the car payment, that's costing you $2,400 a year more than a slightly older, reliable model would have. That's $5,400 a year you could save by cutting 3 things. Not 20, not everything, just 3. So how do you actually apply this? Here's the system. Step 1. Track your spending for 30 days. You don't need a fancy app. A simple spreadsheet works, or even a notes app on your phone. Write down every single thing you spend money on. Everything. Don't judge it. Don't change your behavior yet. Just observe. Step 2. Categorize your expenses into 2 lists. List A, high-impact expenses, things that cost a lot and bring little joy or value. List B, low-impact expenses, things that cost little and bring genuine happiness or necessity. Be honest here. That $6 latte with a friend on Saturday morning, if it genuinely makes you happy and helps you connect, it's low impact. That $60 a month subscription box you forget to open, high impact. Step 3, identify the top 20%. Look at list A. Find the 3 to 5 expenses that are expensive, recurring, easy to forget, and not aligned with your actual goals or joy. These are your targets. Step 4. Cut or reduce those and only those. Negotiate your car insurance. Cancel the subscriptions you don't use. Meal prep twice a week instead of ordering delivery 5 times. You're not depriving yourself of everything. You're making 3 to 5 strategic cuts that save you thousands. And here's the magic. Once you do this, you'll feel more free to enjoy the small stuff because you're not nickel and diming yourself anymore. You're living intentionally. If this is making sense, go ahead and subscribe because in the next video, I'm breaking down the exact dollar amount that eliminates 90% of financial anxiety. Psychological transformation. Now, let's talk about what really happens when you apply the 80-20 rule to your spending. It's not just about the money you save. It's about the mental clarity you gain. See, when you're trying to cut everything, your brain is constantly in scarcity mode. Every purchase feels like a moral decision. Every dollar spent feels like a failure. You start resenting the things that used to bring you joy because now they're bad. But when you apply the 80-20 rule, something shifts. You're no longer asking, can I afford this? You're asking, does this align with what I actually value? And that question changes everything. Because suddenly, spending $15 on a book that teaches you something meaningful doesn't feel wasteful. But spending $15 on a streaming service you haven't opened in 2 months, that feels obvious. The goal was never to spend nothing. The goal was to spend consciously. And once you start doing that, you'll notice 3 things. 1, you stop feeling guilty about the things you love, because you know you've already eliminated the waste. You've earned the permission to enjoy what matters. 2, you start seeing money as a tool, not a test. It's not about being good or bad with money. It's about being smart, strategic, intentional. And 3, you build momentum. Because every time you cut one high-impact expense, you free up space, mentally and financially, to make the next decision even easier. And that's when saving becomes natural, not because you're depriving yourself, but because you've removed the noise. The 3 most common mistakes. Before we wrap up, let me show you the 3 biggest mistakes people make when trying to apply the 80-20 rule. Mistake number 1, cutting the wrong 20%. People see 80-20 and think, okay, I'll just cut 20% of my line items randomly. But that's not how it works. You're not cutting 20% of your line items. You're cutting the 20% that's responsible for 80% of your financial drain. Big difference. Mistake number 2, trying to be perfect. You don't need to track every cent forever. You just need to do it once, long enough to see the pattern. After that, the big leaks become obvious. And once you fix them, you're done. Mistake number 3, forgetting to protect what matters. The 80-20 rule isn't about becoming a minimalist monk. It's about creating space for the life you actually want. So don't cut the $12 book budget if reading brings you peace. Don't skip the Friday coffee with your best friend if that's what keeps you sane. Cut the stuff that doesn't serve you and keep the stuff that does. If you're still with me, make sure you're subscribed because the next video reveals the one number that changes your entire relationship with money. Here's what I want you to remember. Saving money isn't about suffering. It's not about saying no to everything until your life feels small and joyless. It's about clarity. It's about knowing where your money is going and making sure it's going toward the life you actually want to live. The 80-20 rule gives you that clarity. It shows you that you don't need to cut everything. You just need to cut the right things. And when you do that, when you eliminate the 20% that's straining 80% of your energy, your money, and your peace of mind, something incredible happens. You start to breathe again. You stop feeling guilty every time you spend. You stop living in survival mode, and you start building the kind of financial freedom that doesn't require you to become someone you're not. Because here's the truth most people miss. The goal was never just to save thousands of dollars. The goal was to become the kind of person who doesn't need to stress about money anymore. And that person, they don't deprive themselves. They just know what matters. I'm James. And remember, progress happens 1 mile at a time. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today. You just need to find your 20%. Cut it and watch what happens. If this video helped you see your spending differently, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. And if you want to know the exact dollar amount that eliminates financial anxiety for good, that video's up next. See you there.